He was a billionaire who lost something very important. It could have cost him everything. But a poor female construction worker found it and gave it back, without knowing who he was. Why would someone that poor return something so valuable? And how did that one act change both their lives forever? Sit back and find out as we dive into the story of how a billionaire fell in love with a female construction worker who helped him in distress. In the heart of Lagos lived a young woman named Caroline. She was just 24 years old but had the eyes of someone who had seen too much. Every day before the sun fully came out, she tied a scarf over her rough hair, wore her torn boots, and walked to the dusty construction site down the road. Caroline was not just any worker. She carried blocks on her head, mixed cement with shovel, and pushed wheelbarrows full of sand without a single complaint. Caroline would sweat under the hot sun, earning money the hard way. Life had never been fair to her. When she was only 12, her parents passed away in a bus crash on their way home from the village. Nobody came to help. No relatives took them in. She was left alone with her two younger siblings, Daniel, who was just 8, and Blessing, who had only turned 6. From that moment, Caroline became their mother, their father, and their hope. She sold bread by the roadside at first. Then she washed people's clothes. When that wasn't enough, she begged a mason to teach her how to work at a building site. And that was how she started carrying blocks to survive. But no matter how hard things got, she never complained. Sometimes when her hands were shaking from too much work, she would sit on the edge of the building, look up at the sky, and whisper, "One day things will change." Little did she know, change was closer than she thought. Not too far away in the same city lived a young billionaire named Vincent. He was 30 years old, tall, calm, and very private. His face was always on magazines. His name was on billboards. He owned 2 big real estate companies, one in Nigeria and the other in the United States. Everyone talked about how rich he was, but there was something people didn't know about Vincent. He didn't like noise. He didn't go to clubs. He didn't trust fake smiles. Vincent was born into wealth, but he was not proud. His mother, a kind woman with soft eyes, always told him, "Respect everyone, no matter how small they look. True wealth is how you treat others." And he listened. Yet, even with all his money, cars, and houses, something was missing. Vincent had never found the right woman to love. Many women came into his life, beautiful, rich, well-dressed, but something always felt wrong. They acted like love, but it smelled like greed. He would always say he wanted a genuine woman, a woman with virtue, not one who loves my pocket, but one who understands pain, one who sees me, not just what I have. But what Vincent didn't know was that that woman was very close. Fate was already writing their story, and very soon their two worlds, so different, so far apart, were about to collide, but not in a way anyone could ever expect. After more than 10 years of living and working in the United States, Vincent decided to return to Nigeria. He didn't come back to show off. He came back for vacation. He wanted 2 quiet months to rest, check on some of the land he owned in different parts of the city, and enjoy simple moments. In the morning, Vincent woke up feeling light. He decided to go shopping and also inspect one of his properties. He wore a plain green t-shirt, jeans, and a face cap. No suit, no flashy cars, just him and one of his regular black SUVs. "I just want to breathe today," he said as he picked up his car keys. He drove himself to a nearby supermarket, not far from the land he planned to inspect. Inside the supermarket, Vincent picked a few snacks, drinks, toothpaste, and other important items. He smiled at the cashier, paid for everything, and carefully slipped his black wallet into his back pocket. But as he walked toward his car, something fell. He didn't notice. It was his wallet. That wallet held everything: his U.S. driver's license, 2 foreign credit cards, his Nigerian ID, business cards, and over $2,000 in cash. When he got into his car, he felt so calm. He even opened a bottle of water and drank slowly before starting the engine. He had no idea what he had just lost. It was about to be shaken. That same morning, Carolyn was walking to the construction site, but she had woken up feeling a bit hungry. So she decided to pass by the supermarket to get a soft drink and snacks. She counted the money in her bag twice to be sure it was enough. After buying what she needed, she stepped out of the supermarket quietly. But something caught her eye near the vehicle parking area of the supermarket. A black wallet. She paused. She looked around. Nobody seemed to be searching for anything. She stepped closer, bent down slowly, and picked it up. It felt heavy. She looked inside and saw a lot of foreign money, business cards, and some documents. Caroline's eyes widened. "Ah, who left his wallet here?" she said softly. She took a step back, opened the wallet properly, and saw business cards. She picked one and tried to read the number, but it had an international code. There was no WhatsApp contact, and no Nigerian number was listed. She tried to call the foreign number, but it wasn't connecting. For a moment, she looked around again. Nobody had returned to look for anything. She could have walked away. No one would have known. But something in her heart said no. She walked back into the supermarket and went straight to the cashier. "Excuse me," she said. "I found this wallet outside, around the parking area. I think it might have fallen out of someone's pocket." The cashier looked surprised. "You mean someone lost this kind of wallet?" the cashier said. Caroline nodded. "Yes. Please give it to security. When the owner comes, please return it to him." The cashier stared at her. "You're a nice person, thank you." She handed the wallet over to the cashier and walked out. At the petrol station not far from the supermarket, Vincent pulled over and got out of his car. The attendant walked up to him with a smile. "Good morning, sir. Is it full tank?" the young man asked. "Yes, please," Vincent said. "Are you paying with debit card or cash?" the attendant asked. "Debit card," Vincent said. So the attendant continued, "If you're paying with a debit card, I'd prefer you make the payment first, because we usually encounter network downtime sometimes." Then Vincent replied, "Sure, that's okay." Then Vincent reached into his back pocket, where he always kept his wallet. But it was empty. He paused. Then he checked his other pocket. Nothing. He opened the car door and searched the front seat under the dashboard, between the chairs. Still nothing. He moved to the back seat and looked through his bag, his file folder. Still nothing. His heart started beating fast. "My wallet," he said under his breath, his face slowly changing. "Where's my wallet?" He looked at the pump attendant. "Please give me 1 minute." Vincent jumped into the driver's seat and drove off immediately. As he drove back toward the supermarket, he whispered to himself, "Please God, let it be there. Let me find my wallet there." That wallet had everything. Important business cards, his U.S. driver's license, and other important ID cards. Minutes later, he pulled into the supermarket and stepped out fast. He walked straight to the cashier at the counter and said, "Excuse me, please. I was here about an hour ago. I think I lost my wallet. Did anyone see it?" The cashier looked at him closely. "You're the man who bought snacks, right?" "Yes, that's me," Vincent said, trying to stay calm. The cashier nodded. "Yes, a young lady found a wallet just minutes after you left. She returned it to our head of security." Vincent sighed in deep relief. "Thank God, can I speak with him?" "Let me call him," the cashier said. She stepped out to call the security officer and came back with a tall man wearing a dark blue uniform and a tag that read, "Mr. Amos." "Good evening, sir," the man greeted. "Good evening," Vincent replied. "I lost my wallet this morning. I was here to buy some items. The cashier just told me someone found a wallet and gave it to you." The man nodded. "Yes, sir. A young lady dropped a wallet here not too long ago. But do you have proof that it belongs to you?" "Yes," Vincent said quickly. "My business cards are inside. My name is Vincent Benjamin. You will also see a passport photograph." The security officer opened the small drawer beside the counter and brought out the black wallet. He opened it and saw the business cards and the photo. He looked back at Vincent. "You're correct. This is yours." He handed the wallet over. Vincent opened it slowly, one side at a time. Everything was still there. The cash, the documents, the cards. Nothing was missing. He held the wallet tightly and turned to both of them. "Where is the lady? The one who returned this?" The cashier smiled. "She didn't say much. She only came to buy snacks and a soft drink. She saw the wallet outside and brought it in." Vincent blinked. "She didn't leave a number?" "No, sir," the cashier replied. "She didn't even wait for a thank you." Vincent paused, then requested for a small piece of paper and pen. He wrote down his phone number carefully. He folded the paper and gave it to the cashier. Please, he said. If she ever comes back here, give her this. Tell her to call me. Okay, sir. The cashier nodded. Vincent then reached into his wallet, pulled out some Naira notes, and handed them to both the cashier and the security guard. Thank you, he said. Not just for keeping it safe, but for being part of something honest. They both thanked him with big smiles. But as Vincent walked back to his car, he looked around the premises hoping to see the lady who was so kind and honest enough to return his wallet. She was gone. But something in his heart told him this wasn't the last time they would meet. That night, Vincent lay wide awake in his large bedroom. The lights were off, but his eyes were open. He turned from side to side, but sleep refused to come. His thoughts kept going back to the kind young woman at the supermarket, the one who returned his wallet without taking a single thing. He placed his hand on his chest and stared at the ceiling. Wow, she has proven that there are still honest people out there. He whispered to himself. She saw that money, and she didn't touch it. He sat up on his bed and shook his head slowly. I don't even know her name, he said softly. I wish she had left a number. I wish I could thank her myself. I hope she comes back, he said. She truly deserves to be rewarded. People like her are rare. So rare. 3 weeks later, Caroline returned to the same supermarket. She had finally saved a little money and wanted to buy some groceries for herself and her younger siblings, Daniel and Blessing. As Caroline pushed a shopping trolley through the entrance, she looked tired but focused. She didn't notice the cashier by the counter waving at her. "Excuse me, Ma," the cashier called. Caroline kept walking. "Ma, excuse me." Still no answer. But then someone tapped Caroline's arm and whispered, "Hello? The cashier is calling you." Caroline turned back slowly. The cashier quickly came forward with a small smile. "Good afternoon, Ma," she said kindly. "I'm sorry for disturbing you, but someone asked me to give you this." She handed over a folded piece of paper. Caroline blinked in surprise. "Who gave you this?" she asked. The cashier's smile grew. "The man whose wallet you returned weeks ago. He said if you ever came back, I should give this to you." Caroline froze. Her fingers tightened slightly on the paper. She looked down at it. There was a phone number written on the paper. Her heart beat faster. She didn't expect anything. Not after 3 weeks had passed. She had forgotten about it even. "Oh, okay, thank you," she said softly. The cashier nodded. "He seemed very serious about wanting to thank you," cashier said. Caroline folded the paper and held it in her hand as she continued shopping. But her mind was no longer fully in the store. She kept thinking about the paper and what it could mean. On her way home, she carefully put the paper inside her shopping bag. When she got back to their small apartment, she dropped the bag in the corner and went straight to the kitchen. Later that evening, when Blessing, Caroline's younger sister, had unpacked the items Caroline bought from the supermarket and was cleaning the house, she gathered the used paper bags that Caroline had returned with from the supermarket and disposed of them in the waste bin outside the house. She had no idea that there was a phone number inside the paper bags, and by the time Caroline remembered, it was already too late. The next morning, Caroline woke up feeling light in her heart. Then her mind went back to the paper the cashier gave her, the one with Vincent's phone number. She smiled softly. Today, I'll call him. Later that day, when Caroline was ready to call him, she opened her handbag to search for the phone number. Then she paused. She suddenly remembered she had placed the piece of paper inside the shopping bag she brought back from the supermarket. She quickly called out, "Blessing!" Blessing answered from outside the house. When she came in, Caroline said, "Please help me check for the paper bag I came back with yesterday. There's a small piece of paper inside." Blessing froze for a moment, then replied, "Is it something important? Because I already threw it away yesterday." Caroline's eyes widened. Oh no. Without thinking, she ran out barefoot across the street, straight to the big green waste bin by the corner. She didn't care who was watching. She reached the bin, opened the lid, but it was empty. Completely empty. The trash collector had already come. Caroline stood there, frozen. Her heart sank. She looked down at the empty bin and felt something tighten in her chest. Her hands dropped by her sides. Her legs felt weak. She slowly sat on the pavement beside the bin. She stared at the ground and whispered, "God, why now? How could this happen?" Tears rolled down her cheeks, quiet and steady. But after a few minutes, she wiped her face with the edge of her dress. She stood up and said softly to herself, "If this is meant to be, it will still happen." She thought about going back to the supermarket to tell the cashier, maybe ask for the number again. But just as she turned to go, she stopped. She didn't want to look desperate, so she took a deep breath and walked slowly back home. But deep inside her heart, something still hoped. 2 weeks passed. Life went on. Carolyn went back to work at the construction site, waking up early, coming home late as usual. Then one Saturday morning, her neighbor knocked on the door. "Caroline," the woman said, "there's a free outreach at the local government secretariat. They're giving out food, books, and even free beverages. It's from one big real estate company. You should go with your siblings. I'll be there too." Caroline nodded. "Let's go." When they got to the event, the place was full, but peaceful. People stood in line. Volunteers gave out bottled water, beverages, and packs of rice. Caroline was given a small pack of rice and some tomato paste. As she turned to leave, something caught her eye. By the refreshment table, a lady was helping to serve juice. Her face looked familiar. Caroline looked again. It was the cashier from the supermarket. The lady looked up, squinted, then smiled brightly. "Ah, you're the one who returned the wallet, right?" Caroline smiled too. "Yes, Ma, I'm the one. But I lost the number you gave me." The lady's smile grew wider. She leaned close and whispered, "The man is here. He's the one sponsoring this whole event." Caroline's heart jumped. She froze. Her eyes slowly scanned the crowd. Was this the moment she had been waiting for? The cashier looked around for a moment, then gently pointed toward a black SUV parked quietly at the corner of the field. "That's him," she said, smiling. "He's the man sitting inside that SUV. Let me go and tell him you're here." Caroline's eyes widened. She quickly shook her head. No, please, there's no need for that," she said softly. "I didn't come here for that." But the cashier had already turned and was walking towards the SUV with a wide smile on her face. Carolyn stood there, frozen. Her heart was beating fast. She felt her hands sweating. Just a few seconds later, she saw the cashier walk up to the car, bend slightly, and speak to the man inside, pointing toward Carolyn. Then, the man stepped out. It was Vincent. He looked toward where the cashier was pointing, then his eyes met Caroline's. He walked toward her slowly, and when he reached her, he stopped and smiled gently. "I finally met you," he said in a calm voice. Caroline smiled back shyly. "Good afternoon, sir." "What's your name?" Vincent asked. "I'm Caroline," she said, her voice soft but clear. Vincent nodded and smiled again, shaking his head slowly. "You have no idea how long I've been trying to find you," he said. Caroline looked at the ground, then replied, "I lost the number the cashier gave me. I kept it in a bag, but my siblings threw it away." Vincent smiled lightly. "I'm sorry about that, but maybe today wasn't a mistake. Maybe we were meant to meet here." He looked at her kindly. "How did you hear about this event?" Caroline replied, "A neighbor told me, so I decided to come." "That's nice. I'm really glad you came." Then he brought out his phone and held it out to her. "Please, type your number here," he said. Carolyn took the phone with both hands and carefully typed in her number. Then he gave her a missed call right away so she could save it. "Please call me when you get home," Vincent said gently. Carolyn smiled brightly. "Okay, sir," she replied, her voice full of joy. Before leaving, Vincent reached into his car and brought out a small brown envelope. He handed it to her quietly. "Just a little something," he said. "Use it for your groceries." Caroline's eyes filled with gratitude. She held the envelope close to her chest. "Thank you, sir. God bless you," she said. Vincent smiled again, nodded, then turned back toward the group of organizers nearby. Caroline turned and began to walk toward the main road. She got to the bus stop, waited for a few minutes, then a small yellow bus going to her area arrived. As Caroline got into the bus, she squeezed into a small space near the back. The bus was already full, and the noise of traffic filled the air. She sat down quickly, placing her handbag on her lap. A few minutes into the ride, the bus began to slow down. They had reached her bus stop. Caroline hurriedly opened her handbag to bring out money to pay the driver. But right on top of the money was her phone. Without thinking, she lifted the phone and placed it gently on her lap so she could reach the cash underneath. The driver then shouted, "Madam, where's the money?" "Please step down, you're delaying me." Caroline grabbed the money, handed it over, and then quickly picked up her bag and the pack of rice she got from the event. In the pressure to get off before the bus moved again, she forgot the one thing she had placed on her lap, her phone. She stood up fast, stepped off the bus, and joined the crowd on the sidewalk. The bus door closed behind her, and the driver pulled away. Inside the moving bus, Caroline's phone quietly rolled from the seat to the floor, unnoticed. She had no idea what she had just left behind. Not yet. When she got home, she opened her bag to bring out her phone. She wanted to call Vincent and say thank you again, but the phone was gone. That was when she remembered. The phone had been on her lap, and she had stood up too quickly. Caroline sat on the floor. Her eyes were red, but she held back her tears. She closed her eyes and whispered with a quiet voice, "God, you are faithful." Even with the pain in her heart, she still believed. Later that night, Vincent sat in his living room. His heart was full of excitement. He smiled to himself as he remembered Caroline's quiet smile, her soft voice, and how her eyes lit up when he gave her the envelope. He wanted to hear her voice again. He picked up his phone and dialed the number she had typed in earlier, but it didn't ring. It went straight to a voice message. "This number is switched off." He paused. Then he tried again. Still off. "Maybe her phone battery is low," he said to himself. "Or maybe she turned it off to rest." He waited for about 30 minutes and tried again. Still off. Vincent leaned back on the couch. A strange feeling began to sit in his chest. "Why is the phone still off?" he whispered. By the next morning, he was restless. He dressed up quietly, got into his car, and drove back to the same supermarket. When he got there, he walked straight to the cashier. "Good morning," he greeted. The lady looked up and smiled. "Good morning, sir." "Please," Vincent said. "Do you by any chance know where that young lady lives? The one who returned my wallet? Caroline?" The cashier paused, then shook her head. "No, sir. She never told us where she stays. She only came to shop and left." Vincent's shoulders dropped a little. He nodded slowly and forced a smile. "All right, thank you." As he walked back to his car, his mind was full of questions. Did she block me? Did something happen to her? He didn't know what to think. He sat inside his car for a few minutes, silent, staring through the windshield. Then he started the engine and drove back home. 2 days later, Vincent decided to visit a relative. He thought it might help him clear his mind. While driving along a quiet street not too far from the outskirts of town, something caught Vincent's eye. An elderly woman was sitting beside a small wooden stall. Her head leaned against the dusty wall, her legs stretched out on the floor. A few bananas sat on the table. At first glance, she looked like someone he had seen before. He slowed down a little, eyes still on her. As he drove closer, his eyes locked on her face. His chest tightened. He looked again, now more certain. "Yes, that's her," he whispered. Vincent gently pulled over by the side of the road, turned off the engine, and stepped out quietly. He walked over slowly, watching her closely. Then his heart skipped. He knew her. Vincent stepped closer and called out gently, "Mommy?" The old woman woke up quickly. She looked frightened. She was Vincent's childhood nanny. "Please, who are you?" she asked, her voice weak. Vincent smiled softly. "It's me, Vincent, the son of Benjamin, the husband of Isabella." The woman's eyes widened. She stood still for a moment, searching his face. Then she covered her mouth with both hands. "Benjamin?" she asked. "Your father is Benjamin? And your mother, Isabella?" Vincent nodded. "Yes, Ma." The woman gave a small cry of joy and hugged him tightly. "My son," she said, "you've grown so much. I used to carry you on my back. I worked for your parents many years ago." "Ah, God is wonderful." Vincent smiled and held her hands. "Mommy, what are you doing here? Why are you sleeping outside?" The old woman sighed and looked away. "It's a long story, my son." Vincent didn't need to hear more. He gently held her arm. "Come, let me take you home." Without hesitation, she followed him. He helped her into his car, and they drove off quietly. When they got to his house, he gave her a warm room to sleep in, fresh clothes, and food. The next morning, Vincent walked into her room and greeted her with a smile. "Good morning, Mommy," he said. The old woman sat up slowly and looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Good morning, my son," she replied. Vincent quickly came closer and used a handkerchief to wipe her tears. But her voice broke as she spoke. "My son, God will bless you. You don't know what you've done? You've taken me away from shame and begging." Those words cut deep. Vincent looked at her and said in a calm, firm voice, "You will never beg again." And he meant it with all his heart. Then, Vincent led the old woman to the sitting room. He gave her a warm tea and then sat across from her and asked gently, "Mommy, why were you lying by the roadside? What really happened?" The old woman sighed deeply. Her eyes looked far away, like she was seeing old memories. "My son," she began slowly, "after your daddy and mummy relocated to the USA, they gave me some money. I was so happy. I used it to start a small business. I began selling food items in a local market. I also rented a small apartment." Vincent listened quietly, nodding as she spoke. "Things were going fine at first," she continued. "But years later, the business started going down. Food prices went up. People were not buying like before. My goods began to spoil. Sometimes I stayed in the market the whole day without selling much." Her voice became weaker. "One day my landlord asked for rent. I begged him to give me time, but he refused. A few weeks later, he came with 2 men and threw my things outside." Vincent's eyes widened. "He did what?" The old woman nodded sadly. "Yes, my son. I packed the little I had and moved into my small shop. That was the only roof I had left. I slept there every night." She paused. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Then, one night, around midnight, I was sleeping on the floor of the shop. Suddenly, 5 men broke in. They kicked the door open. I tried to scream, but one of them pointed a gun at me. They stole every money I had made that month. They took my phone and the most expensive of the food items." Vincent was already leaning forward, both hands tightly folded. She continued, "The next month, the owner of the shop came and said, 'If you don't pay rent, leave.' I cried. I begged her, but she locked the shop and sent me out." Tears slowly rolled down Vincent's cheeks. He covered his mouth and looked away, trying to stay strong. "Mommy," he whispered, "all this happened to you?" The old woman nodded. Her lips trembled. The pain in Vincent's heart was heavy. He couldn't speak. He couldn't move. All he could do was sit there and stare into the air. After the long, painful talk with the old woman, Vincent went into his study and sat quietly for a few minutes. Then he picked up his phone and dialed a number. It was his site engineer. "Hello, sir," the engineer answered. "Good morning," Vincent said calmly. "I have a special job for you." "I'm listening, sir." "I want you to build a 4-bedroom house," Vincent said. "Make it simple but solid. It must be ready within 2 months." 2 months? The engineer repeated. "Yes," Vincent said. "It's for someone very special. She's moving in once it's done." The engineer paused, then replied, "All right, sir. Consider it done." Construction began the next week. Brick by brick, the house started rising. It was located not too far from the quiet part of Lekki, peaceful and safe. Weeks passed, and one sunny afternoon, Vincent decided to visit the site. He wanted to see how far the work had gone. He arrived in his black SUV, stepped out slowly, and looked around. The structure was halfway done. The roof was not yet in place, but the walls were already standing tall. As Vincent walked closer to the building, something caught his eye. A young woman, wearing a dusty scarf and a long old t-shirt, walked past with a heavy block on her head. She was focused, not looking anywhere else. But her face looked familiar. Vincent paused. His heart beat a little faster. He squinted his eyes and whispered to himself, "Wait, could that be her?" He took a step forward. Then another. The lady came closer, still carrying the block. Sweat rolled down her face. Her hands were covered in cement. Vincent called softly, "Caroline?" The lady froze. She turned slowly, and her eyes met his. "Sir," she said, her voice almost breaking. "You again?" They stood there, both surprised. both confused, both full of questions. Vincent took a step closer and looked her straight in the eyes. "You know," he began quietly, "the day I was told that a young lady found my wallet, filled with foreign currency, and returned it, even when she had every chance to take it, I was stunned." Caroline said nothing. Her eyes stayed fixed on him. Vincent continued, "I planned a befitting reward for you. I even waited for your call. But now, seeing you here, carrying blocks under the hot sun, doing the kind of work only men do, and still knowing that you returned that wallet without touching the money," he paused, shaking his head slowly in disbelief. "It makes me even more intrigued." Then, in a calm but firm voice, he said, "Right now, I need you to drop that block and come with me." Caroline's fingers tightened around the block. She looked up at him, silent, unsure. What is the plan Vincent had prepared for her? And now that he has seen her true struggles, what will he do next? Will this very moment be the beginning of their love story? Stay tuned for the continuation of the story. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end of part 1. If you loved this story and you want me to continue it, please drop a comment below saying, "Continue the story." Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell, so you'll be the first to know once the next part is uploaded. Thank you once again for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the continuation.